It's the last day of the offsite. The meetings were productive, the energy was contagious, exactly what the team needed. The CEO pulls you aside to say, "Thank you, this was next level." And you smile because it felt that way to you too. You found the secret to delegating the logistics so you could focus on shaping your team's experience. You used Offsite. They handled the venues, the negotiations, the logistics, and together you created an experience that will move your business forward. Sound too good to be true? It's actually within reach, and it can even save you money. See how at leaderassistant.com/offsite. Whether you're looking for a new job or you want to be ready when you need to look for a new job, crafting a resume that stands out is a very important skill, especially in this day and age of AI-generated content, AI tracking systems, AI software that reviews and reads and filters and scans resumes. So that's what this conversation today is about. This is a recording from a webinar that I hosted with my friend Al-Husein Madhany, all about how to confidently craft a resume that stands out. Now, this isn't just a generic resume conversation about how to build a good resume. This is specifically for executive assistants, executive business partners, administrative assistants, chiefs of staff, and other administrative professionals like yourself. So I hope this conversation is helpful. Now, if you want to dive in a little bit deeper and actually get the template, the resume template, and the video walkthrough course where Al-Husein takes you through every line of the resume template and helps you craft that perfect resume, you can check out the course at leaderassistant.com/resume. That's leaderassistant.com/resume. That's RESUME. And you can actually get 50% off. So it's $197 for the course. Again, it includes video walkthrough, the full template that you can copy and make it your own, and then a line-by-line video walkthroughs training you how to really make your resume stand out in this crowded space of executive support. So leaderassistant.com/resume to check out the course. And it's generally $197, but you can get 50% off if you use the code CRAFT when you check out. So go to leaderassistant.com/resume, click enroll now, and add the coupon code CRAFT, CRAFT. Again, the coupon code is CRAFT, and it'll take 50% off of the course. And this is lifetime access, so definitely worth getting. And that way you're ready, whether you're looking for a job now or you want to just be prepared and have your resume up to date whenever you need it. So leaderassistant.com/resume, use the code CRAFT to get 50% off. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and we'll talk soon.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
So, my name is Jeremy Burrows. I'm super excited to have you here. I have been an executive assistant for going on 20 years, and currently I'm senior executive assistant at an artificial intelligence software company called Capacity. I've been there since day one. I was hire number one. We launched the company in January 2017. Now we have over 350 employees and plus 100 contractors all over the world, headquartered based in St. Louis, Missouri. But I work remote from Kansas City, Missouri. And yeah, I've been working with my CEO for, this is our start of our 10th year. So very, very fun to be right in the middle of the AI revolution. And I love being an assistant still. But I also wrote a book called The Leader Assistant, and I host a podcast called The Leader Assistant Podcast. All of that information is in our Circle community or at leaderassistant.com if you want to check any of that out. I am a little under the weather today, so I apologize if I have to mute or cough or all of the above and kind of push through this webinar. But I'm super excited to have you today. We're going to talk all about how to confidently craft a resume that stands out. And I met Al-Husein Madhany years ago. We were both assistants, both in the AI space. His journey has been very similar to mine and very different at the same time. And so he was an assistant and chief of staff at Facebook and PayPal back in the day. He was involved with a lot of the reorganization of the executive support roles at Facebook, for example. And he then moved into the AI space and was really doing a chief of staff type role to the executives there, and then transitioned into more of an HR role. So what I love about having Al-Husein on this webinar today is he was an assistant for years, has worked with assistant teams. He has hired assistants as an HR person. And he's even on the side, he has a recruiting and training business with assistants as well. So he's been an assistant, he's hired assistants, he's had assistants, but he's also very, very ingrained in the HR world. So his company that he was part of got acquired last year in the AI space, and he was very, very involved in a ton of hiring. They hired, I can't remember what Al-Husein, I remember following along throughout that journey, but when you joined, there was only 100 or so employees, and then when you left, there was 700 or something like that.
70 to 700.
70 to 700. So that's a lot of hiring. That's a lot of resumes. That's a lot of interviewing. That's a lot of reading resumes. That's cycling through resumes, having interviews, hiring people, making good hires, making bad hires, all the HR stuff. So anyway, that's why I brought him along for this webinar. That's why we've worked together for several years now. He's the guru on the HR resume interview side of things, and I'm just happy to have him here. So, with all that to say, I'm going to share just a couple of quick things, and I'll catch up in the chat as Al-Husein kicks off his resume stuff. But there's this news going around about the consulting firm out of Australia that laid off a bunch of assistants. And they basically said, we're going to offshore and outsource the work that these assistants were doing to low-cost offshore labor. And I posted on LinkedIn that I would share my thoughts in this webinar because I was busy. My parents live across the street. Their sewer line collapsed. I was dealing with that for the last 2 weeks as a kind of a general contractor for making sure everything was going okay over there as we tore up their yard. But the thing that I wanted to say about the instance there is twofold. First, like many other assistant thought leaders in the space have said on LinkedIn, there's a certain element of a perception of the assistant and what we do in our roles is not valuable, right? And so when a finance team or the leadership team looks at the numbers and they say, where can we cut costs? We need to cut costs. Well, let's just outsource assistant tasks to cheaper labor, right? So there's obviously this disconnect, and there can be this disconnect on what we do as assistants and how we bring the strategic value, but people don't always see that and don't always understand that. But at the same time, there are assistants out there who are doing tasks that are not strategic and that are not high impact tasks. And they have either ignored innovation in technology like artificial intelligence and automation, or they're slow to adapt it. And so they're still manually accomplishing tasks that are being more and more automated as time goes on. So that's kind of the two sides of that, where yes, there are people that don't understand what we do and that don't understand the impact we have, but there are also assistants out there that don't understand it either and that are just doing tasks that can be automated with AI or offshore talent that can do it a lot cheaper. On the flip side, I will say that at a high level, my concern, yes, is that I want, my book is called The Leader Assistant. I want people to see assistants as leaders, right? I want you to see yourselves as leaders as well. So I'm definitely passionate about that. For any of those of you who have followed me for a long time, you understand that. But on the other side, I actually think the news that came out about this team laying off all of these assistants, I actually think that's more of a result or a surface level issue. I think underneath the root of it for that specific news and that specific story is that this was a consulting firm that was doing these layoffs. My 2 cents is that the consulting firm is freaking out because they see that AI is going to take the consultant's job. They see that they are going to have to adapt very quickly because AI is becoming a very good consultant to a lot of people. And so I would just encourage you to see it as, listen, we should see ourselves as leaders. We should try to help others see the value that we bring, and we should try to do more strategic tasks and be strategic partners with our executives. But we should also recognize that there are certain industries that are getting obliterated by AI. And there are certain industries that are going to essentially not exist or exist at a very, very small capacity compared to what they are now. And so, yes, be frustrated and be vocal about, hey, listen, we are doing more than just, calendar, email, travel, and other duties as assigned. We're actually strategic partners. But also, just don't be ignorant to the fact, if I want to encourage you in this way and to be blunt, don't be ignorant to the fact that certain industries are getting hit very, very hard by AI. So all that to say, stay encouraged. There's a lot going on in the market. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. What we're going to focus in on is how can you specifically set up a resume, whether you're looking for a job now or whether you're going to have to look for a job, you're forced to look for a job soon, unfortunately, with a lot of layoffs going on, or you just want to look for a different job because you realize you're in an industry that's dying in this AI revolution age. We want to help you craft a resume that stands out, and that's what Al-Husein is going to dive into and help out with. So, Al-Husein, thanks for joining us, and we're excited to craft a resume that stands out.
Well, it's great to be here, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy and Leader Assistant. So great to see so many familiar faces and names across the EA universe. I've just added my LinkedIn to the chat. Feel free to add me. Happy to add value wherever I can. As Jeremy mentioned, there are layoffs coming, but I want to temper that with also some other news that is not actually front page news, but is something that I'm familiar with, and those who are putting their ear on the ground are also familiar with. This is a direct quote from Andreessen Horowitz. Mark Andreessen, who's the co-founder, CEO of A16Z, who A16Z being the number one venture capital firm in the world. On a public podcast, he said recently, we love our assistants and our administrators, and we can't work without them. So it is very much an industry-specific thing. It is not necessarily a blanket, all EA roles are being automated away. Those that are in growing industries will have roles, and those who are in shrinking and automated industries will not. The reason we're doing this webinar is really to serve the community. The reason why Jeremy and I connected all those many years ago was we both had this I'm a firm believer that one should only work with people that they enjoy spending time with and who share the same values. And Jeremy and I share those same values of service and giving back to the community. Um, and so, as somebody who has traversed being an administrator, an executive assistant, an executive business partner, a chief of staff, and now a chief people officer and an HR leader, and somebody who is responsible primarily for recruiting of talent in companies, and somebody who is hired as a consultant to companies when it comes to their talent profiles, I thought one way I could give back to the community is by resurrecting the resume course that we had created so many years ago and spending some time there on going through why I still think it's very relevant. As I said earlier, it is not a blanket, EA automation thing. It is actually an industry thing. And I'm actually seeing executive assistants being hired across a few industries, which I can talk about today. Of course, the one I come from is technology, and that's one in which they have the highest margins. And so that is one in which the executive assistants will always be available. Those are the type of companies that Mark Andreessen, through his company A16Z, invests in. Okay, so let's dive into it. In the chat, please let me know what you think the purpose of a resume is. So just one word, 2 words. What's the purpose of a resume? Why do we have resumes? Especially for an executive assistant in 2026, if you are applying for a job, let's say you're applying for a job through LinkedIn, or let's say you're applying for a job because your friend said, hey, I work at this company, we'd love for you to consider working with us. What is the purpose of the resume? Some people say your availability, to share your professional background, what you can bring to the table, to highlight your skills, to highlight who you are, to get noticed, to get introduction, so some people are touching upon it. The primary purpose of a resume in 2026 is actually just marketing. It is marketing, and it is the only goal is not to get a job. Let me repeat that. The goal is not to get a job. Your resume is to get your foot in the door to have a conversation with a human. That is the goal. The goal is to get a conversation with a human and to beat out the other 100 people that the other 100 resumes that the recruiter had to look through on Monday morning at 9 a.m. when they wanted to be doing something else. So the purpose of the role, and the purpose of the resume, is to have a conversation. Remember, and a lot of what I'm sharing with you today and the templates that you're going to see and the templates in my course are specifically for when you apply to a role outside of an executive recruiting firm or outside of a recruiting firm. This is when you apply directly to the company and you are dealing directly with those HR and recruiting individuals at that company. Okay, so the purpose is to create curiosity in the mind of the reader so that they want to have a conversation with you. Which means what? It means that your goal in creating the resume is to be memorable. To be memorable. Now remember, what is a resume? A resume is literally 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with just black and white. It's just black and white. You cannot send over a Snapchat reel. You can't send over like an Insta reel. You can't. It's literally super old school. 8.5 by 11, black and white. So how do you show up as memorable, and how do you pop, and how do you create curiosity in the mind of the recruiter who has 100 of these things to review in black and white? And that is the purpose of this course, and that is the purpose of this phone call and the webinar. The reality is recruiters, myself being one, I have timed myself. And this is a well-known fact that recruiters only spend 8 seconds reviewing a resume. Not 18, not 38 seconds, 8 seconds per resume. So you have 8 seconds to get a dopamine hit from a 30-year-old recruiter, maybe 26, maybe they're female, maybe they're male, who spends their time scrolling up and down and left and right, getting other dopamine hits on this thing. So how do you do that? And that is the purpose of this course. And that is the purpose of this call, is I've seen so much talent out there. You all are so talented. And yet you're not getting those phone screens. You're not getting those calls because you are underrepresenting yourself on paper, underrepresenting yourself on 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper with black and white. And it's a travesty. It's a travesty. You have so much talent and so much experience, and you're not letting it come through. So going back to this recruiter, let's call her Michelle. Okay, Michelle is the recruiter. Let's say she's 28 years old. Again, it's Monday morning. The job description went live 2 weeks ago, and now she's reviewing all the resumes that have come in, and it's well over 100. And the question is, how do you get from her scrolling through these hundreds of resumes, 8 seconds each, for her to say, oh, this one's interesting, let me have a phone call with this person. This resume is interesting. I've decided I think I want to have a phone call with this person. She can't have a phone call with all 100. She can't have a phone call with the 200 who have applied. Her job is to whittle it down from the 100 or 200 who have applied down to 20. And she's going to contact those 20 people and say, look, we need to have a phone call with these 20 people. The only way to get in that stack of 20 is to make sure your resume pop, to make sure your resume is memorable, and to make sure it attracts the attention of the recruiter and the curiosity of the recruiter. And I would go as far as to say, give that recruiter a dopamine hit. Tell them, show them something they've never seen before. All right? The purpose of that piece of paper that we're going to go over today, this 8.5 by 11 piece of paper in black and white with no emojis on it, with no color on it, right? The purpose is to tell your story, but not tell all your story, but to create enough curiosity that the recruiter's like, wow, this is interesting. I want to talk to this person on a Monday at 9 a.m. for 20 minutes. I'm willing to do that because I'm intrigued by what I'm seeing on the resume. I'm intrigued because it does not look like the other 99 resumes I've seen this morning. I'm intrigued because it is speaking something, it is saying something to me that this person is very intentional about who they are and what service they're providing and how they're marketing themselves. Your resume is not just a storytelling device. It's not just marketing. It's not just to get an interview. It's also, and I go into this in my salary negotiation course, and in the coaching I do, it is also it's how salary negotiation begins. Salary negotiation begins with your resume. It does not begin, at the end of the interview process when they give you an offer. The salary negotiation piece begins with the review of your resume. Recruiters and the best HR leaders understand what your value, your worth in US dollars is as soon as they look at your resume. They've already put in their head how much they will have to pay this person. The best recruiters do that. I do that, and I train my entire team to do that. And if I'm doing that, and I learned this from the best, I'm sure this is something that's well known. So it's not just to tell your story. It's not just to get to drive a dopamine hit in the recruiter's mind so that they want to have a phone call with you. It's also the beginning of salary negotiations. And even more importantly, it is a story about your future. It is the story about the future that you want, and the future you want particularly in that company. Okay, so there are 5 tenets to every resume. And if you take the course, if you see them, and Jeremy will of course show a resume in about 5-10 minutes here. and we can go through some of them. But let me just tell you quickly the 5 tenets of the resume. But before we go into that, what is the one thing that a recruiter, again, I'm not talking about executive recruiters. I'm not talking about recruiting firms. I'm talking about a recruiter who sits inside a company and you've gone to that company website and you've applied through their careers page or through LinkedIn. I'm talking about those type of recruiters because those type of recruiters are very different than executive recruiters or recruiting firms. And I know this because I've worked in both. Okay. And the process is very different. And so the resume should look very different. And the first thing that the recruiter, Michelle, 28 years old, is going to do when she has whittled, the stack from 100 or 200 down to 20. And she said, okay, this one is curious. This one looks interesting. This one looks interesting. Pass on these others. This one. What is the first thing she's going to do before she sets up an interview, a phone screen with those 20 people? The first thing she's going to do is she's going to review your social media. Okay? If you don't think this is happening, I'm sorry to say you don't live in the modern world. The first thing she's going to do is she's going to review your LinkedIn, and not just your LinkedIn page, experience, accolades, education. No, she's going to look at all of your posts from the last 3 years, maybe 1 year. If she sees anything political, she may decide to pass on your resume. Why? Irrespective of what your politics are. Even if your politics are that of the firms that you're applying to. It's because you don't know the politics of the leader that you're supporting and the principle that you're supporting. Let's say you apply to a big company. Let's say you apply to TIAA-CREF. Let's say you apply to the US government. Let's say you apply to McKinsey. Let's say you apply to Deloitte. Let's say you apply to a healthcare system, like in Pittsburgh, which has over 100,000 employees. Irrespective of what the healthcare system's politics are locally, your specific principle that you're supporting within that $100,000 person corporation may have very different politics. The recruiter knows those politics and is trained to view and understand what those politics may be. And more than that, what the recruiter wants to know is that you could be an ambassador to your executive while not being political. An ambassador for the work, for the professionalism of the work, not of the politics. Professionalism is what they want. You are an ambassador to your executive in professionalism, not in politics. Okay. Second thing that the recruiter is going to do, and it's been a very political minefield over the past many years in America, which is why I recommend that executive assistants should stay apolitical, because your job is to be professional, fundamentally. It's not to take on the politics of your organization. Leave that to your executive and the HR team or the marketing team or whoever else. That is not your role. And, perhaps that's a minority perspective, but I'm telling you what works and what HR is looking for. Because as you've seen with the last election, politics goes left, it goes right, it goes crazy, right? It's better just to be safe. Second thing that they're going to look for is they're going to find you on Insta, on Facebook, on Snapchat, and on TikTok. And they're going to look for political messaging there. And if you have anything there that is challenging, they may pull you out of that list. So irrespective of your resume. All right. So before we get into the 5 tenets of the resume, I just wanted to lay that out there, that in the world of social media, in the world that we live in now, in the world where you can literally just go into Gemini or Grok, and I'm not talking about the free versions, I'm talking about the paid versions, which a lot of my team members have. And they can go in and say, please create a political profile for this individual who's just applied for this executive assistant role. And Grok on Twitter, which is basically Twitter, can actually go through all of your X posts and understand where you fall politically. This is what they're doing. So stay apolitical. Stay political. Stay apolitical. There's questions about public accounts and private accounts. I'm not going to get into that. What I know is I used to work at Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. The real question you have to ask yourself is, do you believe that those messages are encrypted or not? Because people can still pull a profile or a bias, a leaning of you as an individual, irrespective of your public or private posts. All right. Okay, the 5 tenets of a resume. Okay, remember, the purpose of the resume is to pop, it's to create curiosity, it's so you don't look like everyone else. And the reason we're doing this call is because I'm seeing so many of you being so talented, and you're just literally like tripping over yourselves, unfortunately, because of your social media posts, because of the way you're presenting yourself on this black and white piece of paper, that it's unfair. And so, I'm hoping that this helps. First, no grammar and no spelling mistakes. No grammar and no spelling mistakes on your resume. So people are talking about in the chat about what if you've shared political things in the past on social media, et cetera. Look, you have your own conscience. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do here. I'm telling you from an HR leader's perspective, who used to be an EA, who used to be a chief of staff, who's interviewed thousands of people in my life. I will tell you that it is very important for you just to be principled for yourself and what you decide and how you want to live your life. My job here is just to help you get a job. And I'm telling you what I've seen get in the way of people getting jobs. I don't know if the recruiter has a left-leaning bias or a right-leaning bias. I don't know if the company you're applying to has a left-leaning bias or a right-leaning bias. I don't know if the principal you're supporting or going to support voted Republican or Democrat or is independent. I don't care. My job is to try and get you a job. And I'm just showing you what I'm seeing happening right now live in the world we've been living in the past few years, of how unfortunately, so many of you have been dropped out of these recruiter top 20 picks because of what you've been sharing politically. All right. The first thing is no grammar and no spelling mistakes. Okay. I should not have to say this to executive assistants, but unfortunately, I feel like I do. If you're not using Gemini or Grok to actually review your resume, I would encourage you to do so for those things specifically. Number 2, less is more. If your resume looks like this, the recruiter is not going to ask you for a phone screen. Okay? Less is more. There's no white space on this piece of paper. All right? Remember, the goal is not to put every single thing you've done on a piece of paper. Okay? It's to create curiosity in the mind of the recruiter so that they go to your LinkedIn profile so that they then can actually get more detail if they want. Remember, LinkedIn, technically, according to the law, is not a resume. It is a social media company. It is not a resume. It is a social media company, okay? So less is more. So you have 8 seconds for a recruiter's eye to go to say, where should I land on this piece of paper? And if I'm a recruiter, my eye doesn't land anywhere. It's like, it's everywhere, okay? So every line that you have in the resume has to kind of pop and be intentional, and every line has to grab the recruiter's attention. Number 3, limited formatting, but intentional bolding. So you want to format in a limit, like you want to limit the formatting that you have. Okay? So it doesn't mean bold every line, underline every, major category. No. You should limit the bolding. Limit the bolding, limit the formatting, and it should be very intentional. Why? Because 8 seconds, you have 8 seconds for a recruiter to create a impression based on a black and white piece of paper. And if things are bolded, you're distracting them. You're distracting their eye. And they're not printing it out, by the way. They're seeing it on a screen. Okay? And this is before they go to your LinkedIn and see your picture and see all the other stuff. So you've got to you've got to make it count. Those 8 seconds have to count, okay? So I would encourage you to not bold more than 6 to 12 things on a resume. 6 to 12 things max. No underlining, and only bold 6 to 12 things, all right? Number 4, metrics. If you are applying to a job and it has no metrics, we will be showing some examples, yeah, and you can also see them in the course. If you're applying to jobs and you do not have metrics on your resume, you will not be hired. Okay, data is the new gold. Data is the new gold. Yes, you should bold. 6 to 12 things you should bold. Data is the new gold. So you have to measure. If you're not measuring what matters, the principles that you're supporting, by the way, are measuring everything. They're being asked to measure everything. So if you're not measuring things yourself, and you're not including hard numbers, metrics are hard numbers in your resume, it's a fail, okay? I need to see in a data sense what you have done, distill it into data. And lastly, the 5th tenet is your resume should be AI compliant. What does that mean? It should be machine learning and artificial intelligence compliant. It means that if you are applying to a large corporation, call it a multinational, a company with over 20,000 people, maybe 40,000 people. I'm not talking about a company with less than 1,000 people or less than a few thousand people. I'm talking about companies with over 20,000 people, over maybe 10,000 people. You believe me when I say that your resume is being fed through a computer and it is being matched against the job description and it's given a number. So like large companies, the ones I've worked for in the past, Google's got over 100,000 employees. Facebook, Meta has, over 100,000 employees. When they have to hire 50 software engineers, 20 executive assistants, 100 salespeople, what they're doing is they're feeding your resume through a machine, and it's spitting out a number, and it's basically saying, compared to the job description, this person's resume is a 98. Like they've hit 98% of all the things that are listed on the job description. Or this person's resume is at 28, right? We've asked for 8 years experience. We've counted it all up. They only have 7. Fail, okay? We've asked for in the job description that they've supported a technology company. They have not supported a technology company. Their score is low, fail. So before the recruiter is even seeing the resume, for larger companies, again, companies with over, say, 10,000 employees, they're feeding it through an AI system, and the AI system is spitting back a number, and then whittling down the first batch for the recruiter, all right? I would even go as far as to say, going back to number 4 in terms of metrics and data, if you are not using AI in your current role, and I don't mean just like, converting your Google searches to AI searches, I'm talking about actually using AI, I would encourage you to start using AI. And I would encourage you to utilize AI and have stories of AI usage in your resume and in your interviewing. And a quick sidebar here. Like I said, I've been an executive assistant and I'm now an HR leader. Every interview that we do in my company, we ask every candidate, how do you use artificial intelligence today in your role? And if they do not have an answer, we do not move them to the next round. Even executive assistant roles. Even executive assistants that we've hired in the Philippines. So I've hired executive assistants in the Philippines. I'm asking this question to them as well. So you better believe I'm going to ask it of Americans. Okay? So this is the way the world is moving. And it's very important that you have a vignette, a story about that and how it has impacted your job in a very positive way. Okay? All right. So we can move now to the next. So those are like the kind of core tenets of a resume. Now we're going to move to like the 7 sections of your 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that is in black and white, that has to create a dopamine hit to Michelle, who's 28 years old, who scrolls up and down and left and right on this thing all day, and you're trying to get her attention. So she calls you or puts you in the pile of people she wants to have a phone call with. And by the way, when you have that phone call with Michelle, or that Zoom call or Teams video call, and you don't show up the way her expectation is you will based on the words on your resume, that's also a fail, which is why you need to have stories, vignettes around every line of your resume, right? And as a quick sidebar here, what's the number one question recruiters ask you that I ask you when I interview you for a role? The first thing we do is say, walk me through your resume, right? It's the easiest question. Walk me through your resume, right? You've probably heard it 100 times. Walk me through, tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume. Tell me about your latest experience. Why are you looking, right? If you don't have a story that pops and is memorable to that question, it's a fast pass. It's like, right? So your resume has to answer that question. And when the recruiter asks you that question in the phone screen, when you go from the, 300 people to the 100 people to now the 20 people that she's having an actual conversation with. If your answer to her question is not memorable and does not resonate in a way a story should, the recruiter's likely going to pass. Okay. All right. So the 7 sections of your resume, right? Now, I've created this resume template, and Jeremy will show an example here. This is a resume template that has 7 sections in it. And this is the stuff that you'll see in my course, right? There's 7 sections. There's a top section, your biodata section. There's a second section called the attributes section. The third section is the core skill set. The fourth is notable impact. Notice the reduction in terms of bolding. The fifth is, the walk me through your resume section, the experience. The sixth is your education, and the 7th is your passions, right? All right. Notice just the section terms. I'm not talking about hobbies. I'm talking about passions. I'm not talking about. I'm not listing every single thing I've done here in terms of experience. I'm listing the relevant experience for the role. If they want more, they can go to LinkedIn. I'm not talking about, I'm using phrases like impact. I'm not using phrases like experience, right? I'm using phrases like impact. And notice even things like my first name or my name is not bolded. I don't have an address on my resume. I do have a city. I don't have a Yahoo email address. I don't have an Outlook email address. I don't have a AOL email address. I have a Gmail address. Okay. If you have a Hotmail address, a Yahoo address, go get a Gmail address. People have biases, and they want people who are technologically forward. Okay. Again, my job here is not to make you feel bad. My job here is to get you a job. And I'm telling you the reality of the world. Michelle, who's 28 years old, doesn't have a Yahoo email address. Probably has a Gmail address. Okay. Most companies are either on Outlook or Gmail. Most corporations in America. Okay. iCloud address is fine, right? Notice Proton is great. Anything that's superhuman is great. Anything that is tech forward. Anything that gives you an edge. Notice I've typed out the entire LinkedIn. I did not shorten it to just just the word LinkedIn with a hyperlink. No, I typed out the whole LinkedIn. Why? For AI. Also, notice I don't have an address. If the job is in San Francisco and I live in San Jose, I need a resume that says San Francisco. Okay? Why? Because the recruiter is going to say, oh, San Jose, that's over an hour commute, pass. Okay? You need to make sure in those 8 seconds, the recruiter is going to choose you for that 20-minute conversation. You're basically giving her reasons to cross your name off of a list. She's looking for reasons to cross your name off of a list. Okay? Also, when you have, nobody cares about your name, by the way. So stop bolding your name. Stop wasting formatting on your name, right? Michelle only cares about your name when she sets up the interview. She doesn't care about your name. She doesn't care how you spell it. She doesn't care how cool it looks and how big it looks and if it's bolded, and she doesn't care. You've got to prompt her psychologically, subliminally, to start thinking about you positively as she walks through your resume. So you give her these attributes, right? And this is all surrounded by white text. Notice it's all white. There's no, it pops, jack of all trades, service heart, chaos tamer, I save you time, period. All of this pops, like it really screams at her, right? Surrounded by white. Then you have the core skill sets section. And I can go into more detail there in the course. You also have the notable impact section. I can go into more detail there. This is where you must have metrics, right? Here's some example of metrics, right? I'm conscious of time. I'm getting pinged by Jeremy about the time, so I need to kind of quicken this. Of course, all this is detailed in the course. I want to just highlight a couple of things. You have to create a connection with the recruiter. You have to create a connection with the recruiter. Because at the end of the day, people want to work with people they like and that they have a connection with. So use your passion section to do just that. Research the recruiter on LinkedIn. Say you apply to a company that's like, 500 people, and they have like 2 recruiters, and you go on their LinkedIn and then you find them on Facebook and you notice that they both have dogs. Okay, so you love dogs too, so put it in the passion section, right? Connect with them, give them something to talk about outside of the core job, right? Say something that is, sparks curiosity. You're into biohacking, put in biohacking, okay? Nobody cares, like I'm a film producer and it was Emmy nominated. Nobody cares about the name of the film. It's just that it was Emmy nominated. So I put in the word Emmy nominated, right? So that's something that's really interesting that most executive assistants don't have, right? If you're applying to a fintech firm, a finance firm, and you're into crypto, put in crypto, right? Like create some kind of immediate bond with the human on the other side. So these tips, to answer the question, are helpful for getting through both an ATS and human screening, but specifically for when you are applying directly to the company, not going through an executive recruiting firm, or you're applying to the company via LinkedIn. Okay. The last thing I'm going to say here before I give it up to Jeremy, as we're coming up on time, is remember, you have 8 seconds to create a differentiation between you and 99 other resumes. The goal of the resume is to secure a phone screen. The goal is not to get a job. It's not to communicate everything you've ever done. Let that be the second link that they click on when it's LinkedIn, or the third link when they go to your Facebook page, et cetera. The goal is to capture the recruiter's attention, capture their curiosity. So they're like, wow, this person is so cool. I want to spend time with them. I want to spend 20 minutes at 9 a.m. on Monday morning talking to this person. That's the goal. A good thing for you to consider is creating a resume. Maybe you create one like this, show it to somebody who is 28 years old, 30 years old, and say, what does this resume say to you? And get their immediate reaction, and don't let them look for longer than 8 seconds. And I will guarantee you, if you take your traditional resume versus this one, or one like this, they will probably more want to have a conversation with the person whose resume looks like this. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope that was helpful. Again, go to leaderassistant.com/resume. Use the promo code CRAFT, CRAFT, at leaderassistant.com/resume to get 50% off the resume course.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com.
The Leader Assistant Academy is an AI-powered, on-demand professional development resource. It's for growth-minded executive assistants and administrative professionals just like you. When you enroll in the Academy, you get access to the Leader Assistant course plus streaming access to the audiobook. The course includes video lessons for each chapter of the Leader Assistant book, as well as the entirety of the Leader Assistant workbook study and discussion guide. Additionally, you get access to my exclusive Academy newsletter where I share thoughts on the state of the administrative profession, behind the scenes of my business, and sneak peeks at upcoming projects. Your enrollment also includes a one-on-one 25-minute coaching session with yours truly. But my favorite part of the Academy is the AI agent, which I've named ACE. ACE is the only AI agent on Earth trained on the Leader Assistant book, workbook, course, and Academy newsletter. So if you need guidance at 2 a.m. on a Thursday because you have a big meeting coming up with your executive and you want to ask for help, you can log on to the Academy, interact with ACE, and this AI agent will help you along your journey, guiding you to specific resources that are actually helpful in that moment. To find out more and enroll in the Leader Assistant Academy, visit leaderassistant.com/academy.